Hey guys, and welcome back to Megaman X. We are ready for the thrilling conclusion, taking on the Sigma stages. So, thus far in the game I've been using only the Buster. I decided to forego that in these stages simply because it takes too long if you, when you have to fight, say, 3 or 4 bosses a level, using only the Buster, it's kind of annoying. So, also good job, me. That was rather graceful. So yeah, we're going to be using the weaknesses on the bosses now. I mean, I've already gone through them all without, so this will give you a chance to see how the different weaknesses affect the guys and such things. This first section is rather irritating, actually, just because of the placement of these guys. And this part right here still just scares the life out of me. I mean, no matter how many times I play this, I'm always just petrified going through it that I'm going to fall off and die. Even though that actually very rarely happens. Just use your dash jump. That's the main thing I can, main piece of advice I can give you here. And there you go. Nothing else in the game will be difficult from now on, so it's all good. I do like to take this part slow, even though there are plenty of people that can just blaze through this no hits. Just because, you know, it is pretty saturated with enemies. But enough of that. Zero's gonna come in and save the day. Sort of. Kind of. Not really. Yeah, good job, Zero. That took about 10 seconds. So once again, this is a battle you can't actually win, so just get yourself killed. Doesn't matter. The difference is that this time around it takes a while because you most likely have the armor upgrade and a lot of the health upgrades, so yeah. And there's a funny little trick you can do here, where if you get killed at the right spot, he'll basically just pick you up and move you. Like, excuse me, you should be there. And it looks pretty funny. Ah, 'twas all a ruse. Okay, so now we're going to be fighting Vile on his own. He's pretty easy, quite honestly. We'll get a chance to check out his pattern in just a second. Basically, he's going to be jumping, he's going to be dashing, and he's going to be shooting. Kind of like you. But the difference here is that this pattern is fairly easy to predict, even though I keep getting hit over and over there in the beginning. I was expecting him to take a different pattern, but that didn't quite work out. Despite how poorly I am handling this fight, he is actually very easy, as you can see. Basically just use the dash jump to get over the projectiles and you should be fine, especially if you have all the upgrades. I mean, I did horribly in that, and I still had almost half health left. And now for something heartwarming, or heartbreaking. Gets me every time. Anyways, if for whatever reason there you didn't have the Did you see how smooth that was, by the way? That was awesome. If for whatever reason at this point you don't have the Buster upgrade, Zero will give it to you. And I would recommend that you use it to chameleon your way through all these guys, not have to worry about them. In fact, the charged variant of the Chameleon Sting is very useful just for getting through a lot of pesky areas. Especially the areas where you have to ascend, like that one. Alright, we got bosses. This time through, as I said, I'm just going to be using the weaknesses. This guy pretty much cannot touch you if you just sit up on the wall and fire these missiles at him. You can double tap, but it doesn't really make that much of a difference. And yes, that's what you're supposed to do. When he gets under you, just go to the opposite wall. That way he won't hit you with the boomerang. Simple enough. Now the designers were rather nice in that they give you these enemies to refill your health between areas. You know, if you go off the screen and come back on, the enemies will be back. And basically that's there for the sole purpose of having you regenerate your health. Or fill up your sub-tanks, whichever the case may be. So, thanks Megaman X devs. Decided not to take the hit there, because whatever. Alright, so boss of Sigma Stage 1 is the spider. For whatever reason, this guy used to give me so much trouble when I was younger. But his pattern is actually pretty easy to see. I mean, he follows the little bars there. So if you can sort of align yourself right off the bat, you know, in the right area, you're pretty much going to be okay. The problem is that once he starts getting really fast, it gets harder and harder to do that. And as you can see, Shotgun Ice is probably the best weapon to use against him, just gets his health down the fastest. A charged shot will do a reasonable amount, but you know, it's a lot easier having that just one hit reliably. So I would use Shotgun Ice. I think that's what most people would tell you. Now, as with pretty much all of the bosses, the trick here is to avoid getting hit by the spider itself, and if you have to take a hit, get hit by the little spiders that it drops, because those are not as big a deal. And that's it. Alright, Sigma Stage 1 is down. Moving on to Sigma Stage 2. Now, basically from now on, the stages are going to function sort of like just little intermission areas between boss battles. So there's not a whole lot to these ones, actually. You know, they're actually really straightforward. And as I said about the last one, the enemies are really there just to let you replenish your health, for the most part. Alright, Chill Penguin. His weakness is going to be the fire, which is pretty intuitive, I suppose. He's actually going to get staggered back by it, so you can sort of spam it as long as you time it right, and he won't even be able to touch you. Granted, this guy's easy enough with just the Buster, but hey, It's all good. And for irony's sake, I had to kill him with his own weapon. After missing several times. Hurry up. We'll ride a surfboard made of ice into his face. Or his groin, whichever may be closer. So there you go, that was totally worth the extra 20-30 seconds that it took to, to beat him. You see what I mean about how straightforward these levels are. I mean, they put the mech there so that you don't take damage, and you just get to refill your health with every pickup. It's just basically a straight line, and yep, that's about it. Not nearly as merciless as some of the older games. Here again, I'm going to recommend using the Chameleon Sting. Just makes things a little bit easier. I wonder what boss is going to be here. Oh, surprise, surprise. So, Storm Eagle's weakness is going to be the Chameleon Sting, which is relatively convenient, considering we already have it equipped. Not really any special effect that it does to him, just does a great deal of damage, and the fact that it spreads out like that also means it makes it easier to hit him when he dashes down at you. Other than that, though, he goes down pretty easy. Granted, he's another guy that goes down pretty easy to just the Buster. So, yep, not too much going on there. And once again, I'm going to go ahead and abuse the Chameleon Sting. Because let's face it, having to ascend in Mega Man is never a fun thing. Alright, now the fun one. This guy actually still gives me a little bit of trouble. Just again, because I'm not an expert or anything at this game. He's not even that hard, really. I mean, you can pretty much see his pattern just by looking at him. The only thing is there's a little bit of randomness with the eyes. You know, they open, and depending on what color they are, they'll do a different action. Whether dashing at you or shooting at you. This thing follows basically, I mean, pretty much the most basic pattern that any video game enemy will follow, other than, you know, just walking to the right or something. But I would recommend using Chameleon Sting here, just again for the damage. Unfortunately, I'm going to run out here. At least I think I am, but I guess I'm wrong. Now things get dumb if you kill that first, but still not going to be a huge deal. Staying out of the spikes is actually a pretty easy thing to do, because if you take a hit and fall into him, you've got that invincibility period. So he goes down with relatively little issue. Okay, stage 2 is taken care of. Let's move on to stage 3. Alright, you want to use the electricity against the armadillo. We'll see why momentarily. This basically makes him completely harmless. Because now you can hit him even when he's rolling. Shots will never reflect off of him, and he dies. That's it. Moving on. Okay, you're going to want to use the boomerang cutter against the chameleon. And a good majority of the time, you're going to actually be able to trigger this loop where he will continually jump to the opposite corner and do this move. Sometimes it doesn't happen that way though. Sometimes he will jump up and do the tail move. But a good majority of the time he'll just do the tongue move like that, and you can basically juggle him back and forth. And that's about it. Basically, once you can beat these guys using only the Buster, using their weakness is not going to pose any sort of a threat at all. And while I do think it's a little bit more fun using just the Buster, again, just for saving time's sake, don't forget that you can do this, of course. And we're moving on. Okay, for the Spark Mandrill, who I do actually think is one of the more difficult bosses for Buster only. He's actually one of the more pathetic bosses when you use his weakness. He will be completely frozen, and because he has that sort of break out of the ice animation every time, you can pretty much just do this over and over till he dies. If you don't time it just right, he can get in an electrical attack like that, but it really doesn't matter. And once again, I really wonder what boss is coming up next. Surprising. Okay, so for Launch Octopus, there's a neat little trick you can do with the boomerang cutter, where you actually cut off his tentacles. And what this does is it means that he can no longer use the spinning move that we saw previously. Now his weakness is technically the armadillo weapon, the rolling shield or whatever, but I find that once you've cut off his tentacles, it's actually easier just to use the Buster, because you can rapid fire to get rid of those missiles he fires at you. But regardless, just for the sake of this LP, I'll be using the rolling shield. Once again, simple enough. So my advice for that fight would be boomerang cutter till the tentacles drop off, and then just use the Buster. Once again, we know what to do here. Not that we'll be needing that extra life, but hey, why not? Okay, Storm Tornado is what you're going to want to use on the Mammoth. But, once again, there's a neat little trick you can do with the boomerang cutter. He'll actually lose his trunk. And I believe all this does is make it so he can't change the direction of the conveyor belt. But it looks funny too, so that's the main reason that you would want to do it. Or at least the main reason I would want to do it. The YouTube compression here, which cuts everything to 30 frames per second, probably makes that tornado look invisible every once in a while, but believe me, I am actually firing things. And he's dead. Okay, now for this boss. This guy's actually a little bit tough. He's a dinosaur car thing? I don't know. Use the boomerang cutter. When he dashes at the wall, go in between, because he will actually knock you off the wall, which is not so good. And as per usual, avoid getting hit by the boss's sprite, because it does quite a bit of damage. This attack can be a little bit hard to dodge, just because he often dashes at you when he fires it. But, again, he's not a huge deal, but I have actually died to this boss quite a few times. Despite the fact that I have basically 75% of my health left this time. Alright, and moving on to the final stage. Now the devs put in a cool little trick here if you need to refill your sub-tanks, which I believe I'll be showing off here. Perhaps not. Couldn't remember. Basically these worms will endlessly drop out of there, so you can use the rolling shield to kill them automatically and continue to get health pickups to refill all your sub-tanks. It's basically just a quick way of being able to do that without having to run back through the levels over and over. And it's Sigma time. I will admit this guy still gives me trouble. First stage is you have to kill his dog, which you're going to want to use the shotgun ice for. Basically you're going to want to try and dash under the thing as it jumps at you. And I'm just going to stupidly take a lot of hits here. But shotgun ice will kill him pretty quickly. Look at that troll face, by the way. Just look at him. And if that doesn't scare you, I don't know what will. Alright, so to beat this stage, you're going to want to use the electric shocker thing, whatever it's called. And there's an exploit in his AI where he will continually dash up the wall as long as you're doing it. And so you can use this to your advantage by timing jumps properly, which I am not doing at all right here. And basically drop down as he goes up, and then go back up as he goes down. You time it right, you will be able to pretty much avoid getting hit, and continue to do damage to him with the electric weapon. The only catch here is that sometimes he lands in a different spot like that, so you will end up taking a hit if you're not being careful. And have to stupidly use a sub-tank on this part. That was the disclaimer at the beginning of this LP, that I'll be using no sub-tanks until I get to Sigma. And everyone who speedruns this game is now laughing at me, but it's all good. I think you can see what the basic pattern is here. It's just a little bit more tense when you're actually doing it. I would recommend definitely keeping your feet off the ground, however, on this part, because if you get hit with that saber, it is very much bad news. See, I just missed my jump there. Good job. And there's that. So with Sigma defeated, and now he's a giant wolf football player thing. I don't know either. Alright, so basically what you're going to do here is jump up on the hands and spam the rolling shield on him. The main problem with this is that the hands are spiky on the bottom and will fire electricity at you. So it's very easy to take a lot of damage very quickly. Basically, rolling shield is your best bet here. As you can see, he's a little bit trickier. Again, there are people who manage to do this fight no damage, but, well, I'm not really one of them. I found that at this point in the game, if you have managed to get all the sub-tanks, you probably have enough HP to just outlast him. Otherwise, you are going to have to get a little bit tricky and a little bit creative with your dodging. One thing you do want to watch out for as well is that if you miss with the rolling shield, you have to actually wait for the projectile to disappear before you can fire another one, so watch out for that. Otherwise, Sigma's going to lose his head a little bit. Yes, that one joke made this entire process worth it. I always say, you just have to love those Super Nintendo explosions. They're wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. And I'm going to do you the favor of not reading the epilogue text. It's kind of interesting. I said before that this is a little bit of a darker Mega Man game, especially when compared with you know, just the previous ones in the series, which were always kind of lighthearted, and you know, Wily was always a little bit you know, he was a little bit funny, not just evil. Sigma, pretty much just evil. I mean, we had a death in this game, and basically, you know, the game ends on, yeah, Sigma's gone, but it's not really a happy ending. So that's cool. We didn't really get a lot of this back then, so yeah. What I'm trying to say here is, it's good. And we will be left with wonderful words of wisdom. Maybe only the X-Buster on his hand knows for sure. Indeed. Indeed. The text does scroll kind of slowly, but we can overlook that. Time to move on. And there you have it. So, I want to thank you guys very much for watching. This has been Megaman X for the Super Nintendo. As I've said, I do plan to get into doing more of the classic games, either ones that I grew up with, or ones that I, you know, had a chance to play a little bit later. And just games that I like that are old, that you don't get to see around a lot. You can still pick this game up for your Super Nintendo, as well as, you know, going the other route that is perhaps easier that I won't mention, but you know what I'm talking about. All in all, fantastic game. Still one of my favorites, probably in my top 10 games of all time. Not that that should really matter to you at all, but it's very, very good. Yeah, the Mad Pecker was one of my least favorite enemies. Hey, I had to get my PG-13 rating somehow. At any rate, I hope you guys enjoyed. I will leave you with the ending credits, and I will see you next time. Until then, thanks for watching.